Well, it's never going to work because you have nothing in common. That's the criticism. They can't prove it's wrong, and they can't prove that all Filipinas are after your money. So they lean back on, well, okay, so we can't prove it's wrong, but if you do this, it's not going to work because you have nothing in common. Okay, so let's look at that. It's predicated on a false assumption. And the false assumption is that in order to have a healthy, happy marriage, you have to have lots of things in common. Now, this is a really big assumption. It's a big misnomer, especially in the United States. I can say that much for sure. We have this website, dating websites, and what they do is they operate on this principle. And so what do? You fill out a profile and it asks you a whole bunch of questions. And one of them specifically, I won't mention it by name, but you probably all know who it is, really goes into detail about who you are and what you like and what you don't like. Do you smoke? Do you not smoke? Do you drink? How much? How often? Are you religious? What is your occupation? What is your educational level? What is your, very detailed profile. And now that's not a bad thing, but here's where it all goes awry, is that the assumption is that if you have certain parameters and the computer matches you up with a woman who has all or most of those same parameters, and it'll tell you you're a 98% match, you're a 100% match, you're only a 30% match, but it's based on all these things. What's your favorite color? Do you smoke? Now, the assumption, and it sounds logical. It sounds like, well, if you're both so similar and you have so much in common, then you're going to have a great relationship. Problem is, that's not how life works. Because if it did, then the Western experience would be, what do we see happening operative in the West? We have two principles that these people swear by. In the West, I'll stick with the United States since I'm most familiar with that. In the United States, the majority of people will date somebody within 3 to 5 years of their age. Okay, so they're going for the same age criteria. The second thing is, whether it's on a dating site or just in person, they're looking for somebody that has all these interests that they share in common. And so let's look at the result of that. High divorce rate. Anywhere from, depending on where you look, anywhere from a 45% divorce rate to a 55 and over percent of divorce rate. If approaching a relationship with the same age difference, being close, and having all these things in common, if that truly was the right way, the appropriate way to have a relationship, then why does it fail so miserably? Why is it most of these marriages aren't even making it past 10 years? It obviously isn't working. So now you look at some of the older people who have had a 35, 40, 50, even a 75th anniversary wedding anniversary. Now, they were not all that sophisticated back then. You talk to anybody that's had a 50th wedding anniversary, you ask them, well, how did you meet and what's the secret to your longevity and whatever? You don't hear them saying, well, we lasted this long because we're only 2 years apart in our relationship, or because we just love doing the same things. We both love the color blue. We both love jazz. We both love walks on the beach at sunset. That's not the answer you get. The answer you get is that they love each other, but it's not predicated on being the same age or having so much in common. Now, there are some couples that, just happens that that's how they met. They're both into music. They consider that a big part of their life. And then they get married. They have a great marriage. And they might attribute that and say, music is the bond of our relationship. But that's not the general rule. Again, look at the high divorce rate. This method does not work. So I can tell you from personal experience that, for instance, I was married for 10 years and it was a fantastic marriage. Now, we eventually, after 12 years, we finally went our own ways. A lot of it was due to financial issues, but it was not because of how well or badly we got along. It was the kind of marriage that everybody would say, oh, Guy, I wish I had a marriage like that. It truly was 12 years of honeymoon. It was fantastic. As a relationship, again, it was very romantic. It was always exciting. It was always fun. And to this day, we're still good friends, but of course, She's gone on and remarried, so I respect her privacy and I don't contact her. But up until she got remarried, we were talking together all the time. We even dated for 6 months after our divorce because it was that great a chemistry. So now this great chemistry, and again, I'm speaking my own personal experience here, not that my personal experience is everything to be judged by, but I'm just giving it as a data point. What was this great chemistry that I had with this woman for 12 years and still remain friends with? Okay, was it that we had so much in common? Definitely not. Definitely not. When we met, she didn't even speak English. She was from Mexico and she was born and raised in Tijuana. And so when I met her, I called her on the phone because she was a mutual friend of mine who introduced us and said, "Oh yeah, you ought to give her a call. Here's her number." So I call her up. Turns out she doesn't speak any English at all, but I had seen her at a party and I could see what a wonderful personality she had. She was the life of the party and she was beautiful. So I told my friend, "Well, why did you give me her number? She doesn't even speak English." She's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, she doesn't speak English." So it took me 2.5 months of ardent study because I didn't speak any Spanish. So I got online, I got books, and in 2.5 months, I learned Spanish. And I used the computer to call her up with a headset, and I would type in what I wanted to say. And that's how we began communicating for about 4 months. So in the space of roughly 6 months, I got to where I could speak Spanish without the computer. Her and I began dating. We dated for a year, and then we got married. Now, it was a fantastic relationship, like I said, and we didn't even speak the same language in the beginning. Now, it helped that I taught her English. She taught me Spanish. Now she's fully conversational in English. I'm fully conversational in Spanish. Now, so we didn't even speak the same language. The other thing, culture. I grew up basically as what they call a pocho or a coconut. I am basically a Hispanic guy who was raised in Southern California, about as white bread as you get. She was born south of the border, lived her whole life there, and all of her customs, her beliefs, superstitions, eating habits, everything was Mexican. I'm talking Mexican, not like people say to me and they say, "Oh, you're Mexican." No, I don't even pass for Mexican when I'm in Mexico. Again, they just look at me and criticize my Spanish and call me a pocho. That's what happens. Her and I had the opposite cultures completely. I mean, I'm into scientific method, logic, reason. She wasn't. I mean, she had a big heart and a wonderful person, but our backgrounds were incredibly different. Our traditions had a little bit of overlap because we're both Hispanic, but the way they celebrate Christmas and the way we celebrated Christmas were completely different. You know, my family has more like the traditional Bing Crosby Christmas tree, type of Christmas. She had this whole other thing that was more like Navidad. It was very different. So my whole point in this is that when people tell you, well, it's just not going to work because you have nothing in common. She's from the Philippines and you're from Europe. You're from the United States. You know, it was one of the things that my ex-wife and I laughed about the whole time is we called our relationship La Aventura Grande, the great adventure. That's what it was for us. Because every day it was never boring. I was constantly learning something new about her culture. I was learning something new about her. And same thing for her. I was teaching her things. I was teaching her things about everything from money to American culture. Heck, I ended up teaching her how to use an ATM card at the gas station. I gave her first cell phone. I taught her in those years to the point where she ended up running a very successful catering business. We ran it together for about 6 years. And so, I mean, it was fantastic. The fact that we didn't have a lot in common. I was discovering new foods. She was discovering new foods, Chinese food, sushi, Italian food. I love food. You know, she'd had maybe pizza and Chinese food, but I mean, she'd never had sushi. She'd never had a lot of things that and again, this was the great adventure together, is that our cultures were so different. Believe it or not, I'm a social person, but I'm not what you'd call the life of the party. I'm more of, I just want to blend in, not be noticed, just kind of find one person to talk to in the corner and just have a good conversation. She, on the other hand, again, talk about not having things in common. we went to a lot of parties. The common phrase that always went around was, it's not a party till she shows up. When she shows up, all of a sudden, man, the music's going, she's dancing, she's talking to everybody and getting people drinks and making sure everybody has something to eat and talking and laughing. And I mean, she made any room light up. Me, I would kind of slip in, start a little conversation somewhere. You'd never even know I was there. So in so many ways, it was a great relationship because we had nothing in common. So these people who say, oh no, you've got to have things in common. Otherwise it's just not going to work. I call BS. It's just not true. And if it was true, again, why do we have such a high divorce rate doing it that way? Getting online and finding somebody who has, everything in common. Now, I'll give you another little anecdote out of my personal history, and maybe you can relate to it. I happened to, when I was freshly divorced, I was about 32 or so, and I was teaching classes and I did it volunteer. It was a group called Parents Without Partners. Maybe you've heard of it in the United States. And it's for recently or any divorced person who has kids, and we would have these different functions. One was outings with the kids. So we'd have like movie days where and this way our kids could meet other kids and realize, hey, their parents are divorced too. It's not such an uncommon thing. They can make new friends. We take them all to a water park or a movie or a pizza place. So we had those kind of outings. And then we had outings without the kids where all the adults could meet other single divorced adults. We would have, just everything from a nature walk to a night out at a nightclub. I mean, just something just for the adults. And then the third part was classes. And so we talked about it, and the leader asked me, said, well, it'd be really great if you could just teach some classes. So that's what I did for about a year. And in that class, I ended up meeting this one divorced woman, and right away, she was just gorgeous, beautiful. And I finished up the class and she was engaging. And afterwards, we talked for 4 hours. I mean, everybody went home. We were standing out on the front lawn of the person's house talking for 4 hours till like almost 1 a.m. I mean, that was our first meet. We just clicked. And guess what? We had everything in common, everything you could think of. I mean, I was working in the medical device industry as a engineering lab tech. She was working for a whole other company. It was a genetics bio lab, and she was a lab tech. We were both into science. We were both into biology. We both read some of the same books. She was very intellectual, very logical. I mean, it was just like talking. We were just click, 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 click. I mean, it was just amazing. We were amazed that we found somebody, like we were like two of the nerdiest people you just ever met. I mean, so we hit it off fantastic. I mean, and it was great. It was great for a while. After about 4 months, maybe 5 months, all of a sudden, it was like seeing all of the air go out of a balloon. Because now that we got into a groove, and now that we'd had all these big conversations about everything from politics to sociology to history to biology to Gregor Mendel and Steinbeck and all this other stuff, after we'd had all those conversations, now we were just kind of in the routine of a relationship. Well, we were so much the same, it became boring. We found ourselves getting into ruts, doing the same thing over and over again, and both being bored with it because we were so much the same. Now, maybe some people find security in sameness, but the one thing we did have in common is that neither of us enjoyed being bored. I mean, we liked trying new things or whatever, but it just seemed like it was almost like we could finish each other's thoughts. It was like, I'm in the mood for sushi. Yeah, so am I. Okay, fine. We get the sushi. There was no discussion, no surprise, no give and take like there was later with, my Mexican wife. And so what eventually happened was the whole romance, everything enjoyable about the relationship, we were so much the same. It became boring, and we finally just went our own ways. Now, again, some people want that. I experienced it, and I wouldn't really wish it on anybody. But getting back to the criticism, it's just not going to work because you have nothing in common. Well, here's point 2 about responding to that criticism is it is true that you need to have certain things in common, but not the peripheral little things like, oh, you like the color blue? That's my favorite color too. Oh, you love square dancing? I love square dancing too. You love rap music? Me too. That's not what you need to have in common. Not even culture you don't have to have in common. Not even education. My wife, ex-wife, now from Mexico, had a basic high school level education. And we were very different. But again, it was great because I could share with her just off the cuff. We'd be driving or talking or watching a movie or something, and I could fill in the blanks for her. And it was great. She appreciated the ability to learn from me in a very casual and relaxed manner. So this whole thing about you have to have things in common, all these little things that everybody points at, you really don't need to have in common. There's basically two things that people, a couple, two things they have to have in common. Everything else can be totally different. The two things they need to have in common is one, their spiritual path. Now you can call that religion, whatever you want to call it. But if they're not spiritually on the same path, you got one person who's a Muslim and one person who's a Christian, and they try to have a successful relationship, at some point, they're going to be sending their kids to church on Saturday or Sunday or whatever. There's going to be certain traditions and certain holidays. And it's going to be, well, wait a minute, I don't want my kid learning Islam. And the other one's like, well, I don't want my kid learning Christianity. So you can see how two people, the one of the two things they need to have in common is their spiritual path. If they're both Buddhist, great. If they're both Seventh-day Adventist, if they're both Mormon, whatever it is, both Catholic, whatever, they need to have enough common ground there. And plenty of Philam couples work out. With her being Catholic, him being Protestant, it's not an issue. There's enough overlap there that they can be happy together. The two religions really don't collide all that much. So that's one of the two things that a couple needs to have in common. The second thing that, again, I consider absolutely you just got to have in common is the future. And when I say the future, I mean their definition of where they're going. Now, typically, that involves marriage. So they have to have the same definition of marriage. Now, I know that may sound like it should be carte blanche, just, not even question. But in this day and age, there are guys who say, well, I want to be married, but I want an open relationship. I want to be a swinger. I want to have other couples in the bed, or I want to have, say, a third girl once a month or whatever it is. Now, if that's his idea of marriage, and her idea of marriage is no, it's going to be just us two. That's it. Nobody else involved. Okay, you can see how there's going to be a real problem. One of the two is not going to get what they want. So they have to have the same definition of where their life is going in the future. Will there be kids? That's another huge part of it. If he never wants to have kids, sound familiar? I know I don't want to raise kids. I don't want to make any more kids. And she is open to the idea of, I really want to have a kid someday, or I've already got 2-3 kids. You're going to raise my kids. We're going to all be a family, right? This stuff has to be in common. They have to both want to raise kids. Not one of them has kids and the other one's like, I don't want to raise kids, but I guess I'll put up with your kids. No, that's not good enough. This is what they have to have in common. The future. Is he ready to comply and understand that by keeping this relationship going and making it permanent and getting married, that if they both want to get married, they both want to settle down somewhere, buy a house and raise kids and send them to school and parent them together, then they've got it. That's what they needed to have in common, was a common goal. Their life is going in the same direction as each other, and their spiritual path is going in the same line of each other. If they have those two things in common, they're golden. They're good. And I say that because I look at the many happy mixed marriages with Filipinas and expats that I have met in person, that I have had dinner with, that I have hung around with, that I have known for years. And those are the two things they have in common. Those two things. Everything else Completely different. Again, she's Filipina. He grew up in the United States. He had a military background. She never went past high school. Totally different backgrounds. Completely different tastes in music. Although actually a lot of Filipinas love classic rock and 80s music because that's in all the karaoke machines and it's pretty popular. But everything else, completely different. But you know what they did agree on? Was they're on the same spiritual path and they wanted the same future together. Having those two things, they were good. So the response to this criticism, well, it's never going to work because you have nothing in common. Well, that's false. They do have certain things in common. They just don't have everything in common. And you know, when you really look at it, if you really wanted to have everything in common, the last person a man would pick is a woman. A woman is about as opposite from a man as you can get. How much really do men have in common with women other than the fact that we both breathe air? I mean, you pick someone else because they are different. You pick a woman because you're a man and you want something different, not the same. Otherwise, you'd go and have a relationship with another man, and then you'd have all kinds of things in common. So this notion that you have to have so many things in common, it doesn't work out when you look at the divorce rates. It doesn't work out when you look at the happy, successful relationships, despite the fact that one is a Filipina and wasn't a foreigner. They're happy. There are tons and tons and tons. I've said this before. You can go to Facebook. You can go to Married to a Filipina group on Facebook. You can go to Happily Married to a Filipina. You can go to My Asawa on Facebook, the group. You can go to any of these groups and you will see so many guys consistently and constantly saying that the best decision they ever made was marrying a Filipino wife. So I will put that up against the high divorce rate of people who say, oh, no, in order to work, you got to be the same age and you got to have all these things in common. The only reason the divorce rate's been going down a little bit in the United States is because less people are getting married. They're living together and then it's not working out and then they go their own ways and there's no divorce on the books. That's the only reason divorce rate's even been slightly going down. So these people who say it's not going to work because you have nothing in common holds no water at all.